All right, so we're finally tackling this whole AI deepfake thing. Seems like it's everywhere these days. You sent over a ton of stuff for this deep dive, videos, articles, research, the whole works. And honestly, I gotta say, I'm starting to get a little freaked out myself just skimming through it all.
Yeah, it's definitely eye-opening.
Eye-opening. I mean, it's more than that, right? Think about it. We're bombarded with images and videos constantly, and we just automatically trust what we see. What happens when that's not true anymore? When seeing is no longer believing?
Well, that's the core issue here. We rely on visual information more than ever before, and now that very foundation is being shaken.
You got it. And it's not some distant threat either. Like, you sent that video, the fake one with Putin declaring the war in Ukraine is over. And then there's that crazy story about scammers using those cloned voices, stealing millions of dollars. Millions. It's just insane. And even creepier, the potential for AI to generate images of, well, children and using them for, I don't even want to go there.
It's a dark side for sure, and one that's getting harder to ignore.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Now, I know there are some positive uses being explored, right? Like you mentioned that article about using deepfakes to recreate historical figures. That's kind of cool, actually. Imagine talking to a deepfake Einstein. But honestly, it's the alarming side of all this that we need to really unpack.
Absolutely, and that's why understanding how this tech works is so crucial.
Okay, so let's back up a bit. For those of us who haven't gone down this rabbit hole yet, what is a deepfake exactly?
Well, the term itself is pretty simple. It's basically deep learning and fake smashed together. Deep learning is a type of AI. So you're using AI to create or manipulate audio and visual content. And the goal is to make it so real that it's nearly impossible to tell it's a fake.
So like Photoshop, but for video and audio.
That's a decent analogy, but deepfakes are actually way more complex than Photoshop. We're not talking about altering a still image, it's moving images and sound. That adds a whole other level of complexity.
Right, because video has time as like another dimension, way more data to play with, makes it even crazier that they can pull this off. You know, I remember when deepfakes first kind of popped up, it was mostly face swaps for like laughs, sticking Nicolas Cage's face on everyone in a movie scene, that kind of stuff.
Exactly, yeah. But the technology didn't stop there. It's moved way beyond just swapping faces. You can manipulate expressions, movements, even generate entire scenes that never actually happened.
Okay, so how do they make these things? I keep thinking back to that Between the Lines video you sent. They talked about an encoder and reconstruction. Can you explain that?
Sure. So imagine AI watching hours and hours of footage of someone, analyzing every single facial expression, every movement. That's the encoder working, basically building a digital blueprint of that person's unique traits. Then there's the reconstruction algorithm. It takes that blueprint and uses it to manipulate existing footage or even generate brand new content. Makes it look like that person is doing or saying stuff they never actually did.
So like it's learning the person's essence, their patterns, and then using that to basically puppet them.
Exactly. And the really scary part, the AI is always learning, always getting better. The more data it has, the more realistic the deepfakes become.
Which leads us to Jan's, right? That Unit 21 article you sent got pretty deep into that. Sounds like AI fighting AI, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, GANs, or generative adversarial networks, are definitely both fascinating and a bit unnerving. It's this system with two AI models going head-to-head. The generator creates the fake content, and the discriminator is trying to spot the fake.
A constant game of one-upmanship, then.
Precisely. And through this process, this back and forth, the generator gets really good at making fakes that are crazy hard to detect, even for another AI, which brings up some serious concerns.
No kidding. One thing that really hit me, it used to take serious computer power and expertise to create these things, but now there are apps that put that power in anyone's hands.
You're right. The democratization of this tech is a double-edged sword, that's for sure. On one hand, it opens up creative possibilities, but on the other, it significantly lowers the bar for anyone with bad intentions. Which brings us to, well, the darker side of all this.
I mean, where do we even start? It seems like every article and video you sent just highlighted another way this tech can be used for harm.
Let's start with something you had in your notes, that Gabon coup, the one that was supposedly set off by a weird video of their president. That situation, it really highlights how deepfakes can mess with entire countries.
That's what got to me, yeah. It's not just messing around with movie scenes anymore. This stuff is having real-world consequences, like sparking violence, causing political chaos. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that incident really put deepfakes on the map, but in a whole new way. World leaders, intelligence agencies, they all had to start taking this threat seriously. It became clear that deepfakes could be a weapon, something to manipulate people with, to sow chaos on a global scale.
It's scary. And you mentioned that fake Zelensky video, the one where he's surrendering. That's like right out of some dystopian nightmare.
Absolutely. Deepfakes have a huge potential to be used in disinformation campaigns. Think about it. We've seen fake videos of Biden giving speeches he never gave, that fake Putin declaring peace. It's all designed to do one thing, make people lose trust in real news and create a world where you can't tell what's true anymore.
It's like we're headed towards some kind of post-truth society where anything can be faked, nothing can be trusted.
Exactly. And it goes beyond politics, too. You highlighted that article about the company director, the one whose voice got cloned to steal $35 million. That's a whole other level of scary.
Yeah, that financial fraud aspect is terrifying. If they can clone a voice that well, to the point it bypasses security, who's to say they can't target any of us?
Imagine getting a call. It sounds exactly like your kid, begging for help, asking for money. It's a disturbing thought.
It really makes you question every interaction, every single thing you see or hear online.
It shows how vulnerable we are in this digital age. We depend on technology so much, and now that dependence is being used against us.
And speaking of vulnerable, did you see that video? This real-time AI deepfake has gone too far. It's wow. I mean, this guy's swapping faces with some young woman live in real time, and it's flawless.
That video was a game changer. It showed us that deepfakes aren't just limited to, pre-recorded stuff. It can happen live, which opens up a whole new set of dangers, especially with things like catfishing, social engineering.
It's like the whole idea of online identity is just crumbling. If anyone can change their face, their voice so easily, how can we trust anything or anyone online?
It raises some pretty big questions about trust, authenticity, the whole nature of reality in this digital world. If we can't even be sure who we're talking to online, what does that mean for our relationships, our communities, everything?
Okay, so with all this deception swirling around us, is there any hope? Can we even spot a deepfake anymore? I remember that Between the Lines video talked about unnatural blinking that used to be a giveaway, but it sounds like those deepfake creators are always one step ahead.
Yeah, the blinking thing, that was an early clue. But like you said, they adapt. Deepfakes keep getting better, and the creators are constantly finding new ways to trick those detection methods.
So, what are we supposed to look for? Are there any signs, any clues to help us tell what's real and what's fake?
There are still some red flags you can look for. Things like movements that look unnatural, inconsistencies with lighting or shadows, blurry edges around the face, or when the audio and video don't quite match up. Those could be signs that something's off.
Right, and I remember that AI search video mentioned something as basic as man hands. Like if a deepfake is trying to show a woman, the hands might give it away.
Exactly. Paying attention to the details, even tiny ones, can sometimes reveal the truth. But it's getting harder and harder as these deepfakes become more sophisticated.
So, is it hopeless? Are we just doomed to be constantly fooled by this technology?
I wouldn't go that far. It's definitely a challenge, but not hopeless. The good news is that researchers are working hard developing AI-powered tools that can analyze videos and audio for signs of manipulation.
So it's like AI fighting AI.
You could say that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an arms race. But as these detection technologies get better, they'll become more available to everyday people, giving us a better chance to verify what we see online.
That gives me some hope, at least. But even with these tools, it feels like we're always going to be playing catch up.
That's true to some extent. The most important thing is to stay informed, keep learning, and adapt as this technology keeps evolving. And remember, deepfakes are just tools at the end of the day. It's up to us how we use them. We need to make sure they don't destroy our trust in the digital world, but actually become something positive.
Okay, that's a good point. So we've covered the dark side, the potential harm, how hard they are to spot, but you did mention some positives in your notes. Are there any ways to use deepfakes that could actually be beneficial?
Oh, definitely. There are definitely risks, but there are also opportunities. You brought up that article about using deepfakes for education. Imagine a history class where you could interact with a deepfake of Abraham Lincoln or Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow, that would be amazing. It would make history come alive, you know? Way more engaging for students.
Exactly. Deepfakes could change how we learn about history, science, even art. Think about having a conversation with a deepfake Da Vinci or Marie Curie.
You also mentioned an article about using deepfakes to connect with people who have passed away. That's both kind of cool and a little unsettling at the same time.
It's complicated, for sure. But imagine being able to see and hear a loved one again, Even if it's just a digital version, it could bring a unique kind of closure, a sense of comfort.
Like a digital seance almost.
In a way, yeah. But it brings up some important ethical questions, too, about consent and respect for the deceased person's memory.
That's right, because even though they're not here, their image, their voice, it still belongs to them. It's a tough area to navigate ethically.
Definitely. And then there's the whole entertainment industry. We've already seen actors being digitally de-aged, even brought back to life for movies.
Yeah, like bringing back Carrie Fisher for the Star Wars sequels. That was amazing, seeing her on screen again.
Deep fakes could open up a whole new world of possibilities for filmmaking and other types of entertainment. But again, the ethics are crucial, especially when it comes to the actors' rights, their control over their own image.
It seems like for every potential benefit of deepfakes, there's a whole ethical dilemma attached to it.
That's kind of the nature of any powerful tech, I think. It's a tool. Like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's up to us as a society to figure out how we use it and to make sure it helps humanity instead of hurting it.
Okay, wow. Still kind of wrapping my head around everything we've talked about. It's like we're standing on the edge of this crazy digital cliff, exhilarating and terrifying all at the same time.
I think you nailed it. We're heading into a future where reality itself isn't so solid anymore. Anything can be faked. Seeing is not believing. It's a whole new ballgame.
And the thing is, this tech, it's not going anywhere, is it? It's only going to get better, more accessible, maybe even more dangerous. So what do? Just give up and accept that we're going to be swimming in a sea of digital fakes forever.
No way. This isn't about giving in to fear. It's about recognizing the challenge
Right.
and then taking action, trying to shape how this tech develops in a positive way.
Okay, so how do we do that? What can we, like, as individuals do to protect ourselves? How do we even navigate this crazy new world where you can't trust what you see?
You've actually hit on some key points already. It all starts with education awareness. We've got to learn, and we need to teach future generations how to think critically in this digital age, how to tell fact from fiction.
So no more blindly trusting everything we see online. We got to be like digital detectives, always questioning whether what we're seeing is actually real.
Exactly. And it's not just about each of us taking responsibility either. We need to demand more from the people creating and spreading these deepfakes, more transparency, more accountability.
You mean holding tech companies, content creators, all of them, responsible for the harm their creations can cause?
Exactly. We need some rules, some ethical guidelines, legal frameworks, something to make sure deepfakes are used responsibly. They can't just be weapons for manipulation or causing harm.
Like establishing traffic laws, but for this new digital world. But what about the tech itself? Can we actually fight AI with AI? Are there tools being developed that can help us catch these deepfakes?
That's where it gets really interesting. There's a ton of research going on right now into deepfake detection. They're developing algorithms that can analyze video, audio, looking for those little hints of manipulation, like inconsistencies in lighting, shadows, even micro expressions that we might miss with the naked eye.
So it's like a digital arms race then.
Yeah.
The people making deepfakes are trying to make them more and more convincing, and researchers are trying to build better ways to spot them.
Yep, a constant back and forth. But the good thing is, as those detection tools get better, they'll become more available for everyone to use. So we'll all have a fighting chance to check if what we're seeing online is the real deal.
That's good to hear. It's like having a digital lie detector right there in our pocket. But even with those tools, it still feels like we're always going to be one step behind.
Maybe, yeah. But the key is to stay informed, keep learning as the tech changes, and to adapt. And don't forget, deepfakes, at the end of the day, they're just tools. It's on us to decide how we use them. We need to make sure they don't destroy our trust online, but actually help make things better.
Powerful stuff. I got to say, I'm actually feeling a bit more hopeful now than when we started. Knowledge really is power, isn't it?
It definitely is. The more we understand about deepfakes, the good and the bad, the better prepared we'll be to navigate this whole new digital reality.
So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive, what's the main takeaway here? What do you want them to remember most?
I want them to remember the deepfakes. They're powerful. They can be used for good or bad. And it's on us, each of us individually and as a society, to figure out how they shape our future. If we're aware, if we're critical, if we're engaged, we can make sure deepfakes don't destroy trust, but become a force for good.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the world of AI deepfakes. It's been fascinating, eye-opening, and yeah, a little scary at times.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, everyone, stay curious, stay critical, stay engaged. The future of our digital lives depends on it.
To all our listeners out there, thanks for diving in with us. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into something big that's changing our world. Until then, stay informed, stay skeptical, stay tuned.